Hi, welcome back. I'm John Marshall, Shared Services Leadership Coalition, and I'm really pleased to introduce today's guest in what will be the last of a series of reflections on progress in shared services since the eGov Act of 2002 was enacted. Today, I'm visiting with Earl Pinto. Earl is the Deputy Associate Administrator, the Office of Shared Solutions and Performance Improvement at GSA, and his job is to lead this movement forward in the federal workspace towards adoption of shared services. And Earl, it's great to have you here today. Tell us a little bit about the role you're playing today, and then we'll talk about how the eGov Act has influenced the state of play from the beginning to today.
Great. I'm Earl Pinto, as John mentioned, Deputy Associate Administrator for the Office of Shared Solutions and Performance Improvement. And in that role, I essentially have three streams of work. The first of which is providing implementation and strategic support for the President's management agenda. The second is coordinating governance and policy development across the CXO ecosystem. And then lastly is what we're talking about today, is how we coordinate governance and program management for government-wide shared services.
That's the one we really want to focus on today, Earl. Those other two are very important too. But can you tell us a little bit about some of the key activities that are underway today in the shared services space that your office is leading?
So, I mean, the first of which is we are developing standards, and what we're doing is getting all the agencies together to agree on what we can share. And we do that through the development of business standards. And we're making great progress on that. The second thing is we're creating centralized capabilities for mission support functions through the use of the Quality Service Management Offices, also known as QSMOs. And then lastly, there are services out there that we all know that are mature, they're already adding value to the government, and they're customer-centric. And we're trying to increase adoption of shared services, of those shared services.
Yeah, so those are very interesting areas that are underway, Earl, and very important ones. And can you tell us how have you seen the eGov Act influence the work that is underway today? It happened 20 years ago now. Do you still see an influence of the eGov Act in the implementation of these initiatives today?
What we see today is the timeless nature of the act and its provisions. And how even to this day, those provisions continue to drive our collective work across the federal enterprise. Now, we believe this is true in the shared services ecosystem. So to that end, the eGov Act set forth a broad set of provisions around imperatives to transform agency operations using information technology to promote improved interagency collaboration, and it drove home the real goal. And the real goal is to better serve the public. Lastly, eGov also set a standard of expectations to leverage best practice from across both government and the private sector. We see much of these principles embedded within the work that we do today. Around agency collaboration, one of the single most important areas of progress has been in the realm of interagency coordination. For shared services, agency participation, or as we call it, the voice of the customer, is core to what we do and drives direction setting in shared services. We see this through the Shared Service Governance Board, the cadre of agency senior accountable point of contacts, and even in the interagency work of the Business Standards Council, best practices from across the government and the private sector. So to further the eGov provision of leveraging the public-private best practices, what we've done is encourage marketplace models that include commercial offerings and federal providers, thus increasing not only the capacity of what's available to federal agency, but leveraging the best practices of both federal and commercial offerings, which is consonant with a key provision of the Act. role of technology improving services to the public. Here's what I know to be true. Improved mission support services will ultimately translate into improved agency capacity to deliver on their actual missions. By enabling agencies to better deliver on functions such as HR and workforce, financial management, procurement, cybersecurity, grants management, information technologies, and so forth, that there will be a cascading effect that ultimately translates into improved services and outcomes for the public. So put otherwise, agencies on the receiving end of high-performing shared services are better positioned to deliver on its actual mission to the public. And in the end, it'll ultimately elevate customer experience, increase public trust. The eGov Act also established the Office of the Federal CIO, which chairs and sets directions for the Shared Services Governance Board. So the act has absolutely been crucial to our development and evolution. We also know that embedded within the eGov Act of 2002 was the Federal Information Security Management Act of 2002, later updated in 2014. These acts set the standard for cybersecurity. The work that the cybersecurity QSMO is doing, whether it's in vulnerability and disclosure programs or protective domain name system services, they were all influenced by the act.
That's so true, Earl. The act still lives, and you're giving the most recent testimony to that. We've had some old timers before you who were here from the early days of its implementation, and the same themes are resonating today. Earl, something you mentioned a couple of times. By the way, there was a lot there to unpack, and we can't get to all of that in this conversation today. But I did want to ask you a follow-up question on something you mentioned a couple of times, was the importance of customer experience. And of course, customer experience is one of the three priorities of the President's management agenda in this administration. Can you tell us a little bit more about how shared services supports and enables improved customer experience in the delivery of government mission services?
Well, I can tell you what we're doing to improve customer experience within shared services. We have the QSMOs working very diligently on making sure that they provide a good experience. So we're developing in the grants management world the tools necessary to make sure that on the customer journey to get the services that they need, that where we see pain points, hiccups, things that stress the customer, which is the employee, we're taking steps to remediate that. And so we're going to have, going forward, when a QSMO unveils its services and offers its marketplace, both federal and commercial, what you'll see is a real concentrated effort on providing customer experience tools to the providers so that we actually improve the experience of the federal employee. And we think that we can draw a connection between a more engaged and an agency that has sort of lowered the volume on administrative noise with improved service to the public.
That's a great answer. That's what we all want, is leveraging shared services and other modernization tools to ultimately improve mission delivery to citizens. So yeah, clearly shared services are providing fulfilling an important role there. Earl, this activity has been underway a long time, 20 years since the eGov Act, and most of us who've been part of this journey see that there's still quite a ways to go. This is not something that's going to be done in 5 or even 10 years. What next steps do you see that are necessary? How would you kind of define the unfinished business, and what next steps are necessary to realize the vision of the eGov Act?
Well, first of all, I would say this is a very good question. I would submit to you that this journey is ongoing, and it evolves like a video game where you never really finish. You just keep moving up to the next level. Our work in elevating the capacity of agencies to deploy modern tools and technologies that support mission delivery is never finished. Rather, the work we do today and we'll do tomorrow builds on, is informed by the tremendous body of modernization efforts that's delivered the results we've seen to date. So one of the next steps includes continuing our path to begin, like I said earlier, offering these marketplaces to agencies so they have choice and they have modern and secure technology solutions.
Earl, there's a lot of talk, a lot of thinking going on about the evolution of technology and how these new technologies might influence the evolution of shared services in industry and government. So how might you see things? Do you see technology and shared services evolving in a continuous direction, or do you see leaps ahead or different directions in which things might move forward? How do you see the future playing out?
Well, if we think back to the original directives and initiatives in the 2000s, the work that was done to designate leadership in key areas such as financial management, human resources, and I'm talking about the lines of businesses. And we then step back to look at where we are today. What you see is these same organizations, Treasury Fit and OPM's HRLB, are among the cross-government leaders collaborating with agencies to establish the business standards in use today. It's really a testament to the enduring nature of the imperative to bring the federal enterprise together in addressing challenges in these spaces. With regard to service providers, the journey there began with what we still see today as the current outlay of federal shared services providers, offering technologies and services to the agencies across many key mission support functions. We know those federal providers have in many cases spent the last 2 decades working hard to meet the demands of their communities, both through engagement on customer wants and needs, as well as in the continual refinement and delivery of actual solutions. What we see now with the advent of the marketplace model, led by the quality service management offices, as I told you, they are QSMOs, it might be regarded as an opening of the aperture that will enable agencies to leverage not only those same federally deployed solutions, but also the best of what the private sector has to offer in terms of technology, services, and innovation. Now, with that said, one can see how the QSMOs owe their ancestral roots to the line of business movement. All those organizations are still in play. And an area of great progress we should also recognize that was born in 2015 and continues to this day are the efforts to improve cross-functional coordination across multiple fronts. The establishment of the Unified Shared Services Management Office, now the Office of Shared Solutions and Performance Improvement, which I have the honor of leading, at GSA in 2015 enabled coordination of not only multiple components of the mission support lifecycle, but also of multiple providers, O&B, and the agencies themselves. Collectively, they came together to think through and set the direction for both current and future state of shared services, much of what we see today with our own program. And we talked about some of these entities. The Business Standards Council, designed to foster agreement on common capabilities. The QSMOs, offering and managing marketplaces of services and solutions, both federal and commercial. And the Shared Service Governance Board, serving as the voice of the agencies, owes itself to those initial 2015 unification efforts and the work that has followed in the years since. Now, as we've seen from the beginning of the eGov era, what really matters most is aligning the outcomes of the work that we do to our core principles. You know, those agency collaboration, leveraging the best of public and private partnerships, setting up ourselves for better data, cyber, and records retention, and supporting the agencies in their continuous need to modernize and transform when appropriate. And you can expect that we will continue to make strides to those ends.
And we're counting on you, Earl, to keep on top of these and to keep turn up the heat on industry and government and keep things moving forward. And you're doing just a terrific job in that role at GSA as the guy in the chair who's really the shared services leader for the federal government. It's a big role, Earl, and it's been a real pleasure for us in SSLC to work with you through the last couple of years. And you also referenced the past, and we really are, as it's been described a number by other of our speakers, as a relay race. We've received the baton from generations before us, and we hold it and advance it, and then we'll pass it to the next generation. But you're the guy who's carrying the baton right now, and doing a great job. And we really appreciate everything you're doing, your commitment and energy you're putting into this long distance race.
Thank you so much. Really
Great being with you.
being here.
Great being with you today, Earl. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
You bet. Take care.